Hello, guys. Welcome back to Latin 2 Online. Hope you guys had a good weekend and that test on Friday went well for you all. I know people are starting to probably get a little ready for online classes to be over, but what is this, the last 4 weeks we have here? I'm not, is it four? It is at least the last two chapters. We only have two more chapters. So we're starting 22 today. We'll get 23, and we might dip our toes in the water of 24 because it's so cool, to me at least. And then we'll be done. So we're getting there. Today, we're going to learn the fifth declension. If you recall, the very first online class we had was chapter 20, learning the fourth declension. And that seemed to go pretty well for you guys. You know the drill. It's just a matter of learning like 5 new noun endings and how to recognize them. And the fifth declension is actually a bit more. There's less like overlap, kind of between uh, endings than the fourth declension, which has that nasty us ending. Okay, let's see. I'll have you guys do 3 translations today in the form. And again, I apologize for that thing on Wednesday where it was asking you to enter a number for some reason. That is a totally new issue popping up. I don't know why it automatically tries to format to only taking numbers as though it's like a math equation or something. I don't know why that started to happen. But I'll hopefully watch for that not happening. Let's see, Wednesday we'll check those translations and we'll start a new reading. The reading for this chapter is Cicero's victory speech after Catiline has been kind of like defeated, which is cool. But you guys are probably a little sick of Catiline and Cicero, but it is straight Cicero, so that's kind of cool. Our last reading was straight up Virgil, and now we're getting straight Cicero for I believe our last 2 stories, and then we might look a little bit at a Julius Caesar reading, and that's kind of a glimpse of what a third year of Latin will be like for my current 8th graders, where we'll be looking at a lot of just direct sources from Cicero and Julius Caesar specifically, and maybe a touch of Virgil. Okay, and then Friday, we will take. I think we'll take a vocab quiz. I'm probably going to do a poll on Wednesday where I ask you guys if you prefer separating the vocab and the trans quiz, or if you guys actually like and prefer doing those together, since the average tends to be a little higher than the average for just like isolated translation quizzes are. But anyway, we will see. That might be kind of based on how the grades are looking for the last one. And we will check any translations we have going on at that point. But by Wednesday, I'll let you know about the vocab quiz. So I guess I'll do that poll today. Yeah, I'll do it today. All right, so fifth declension. This is most of the chapter. There's like a tiny little thing in addition to this that is new, but it's mostly fifth declension, which in a way is going to make this chapter kind of easy and a chance for us to just really make sure we're doing good with the relative clauses and the passive voice and perfect passives, etc. One good thing about this declension is that all of the words in the fifth declension, except for 1.5, are feminine. Um, if you remember, third and fourth declension have all 3 genders, which wasn't a huge deal, but neuter nouns and second, third, and fourth declension all have distinct endings, which can sometimes kind of throw us off. So there's just going to be like one ending for every case here, and that's kind of nice. The one exception to this rule is dies diei, which means day. We've seen that word before. And that, for whatever reason, is masculine. And also meridies, which means like midday. Other than that, all feminine. So, all right, let's go through these case by case and take a look. I have singular on top of plural. I never know how I feel about that format since I usually put plural alongside singular. So maybe we'll have an alternate version of this later at some point. But this is on page 176, by the way. All right, so, okay, the nominative, singular, we'll do singular and then plural for each case and just kind of work our way through. It's a long es, so that should remind us of third declension plural nominative. And it's the same for singular and plural. So that's kind of like fourth declension, though technically it's a macron u. For fourth declension, did I say second? I mean fourth. How it's they're ending in us and long us in the nominative, singular, and plural respectively. So yeah, that one's not too bad. We've recognized the long es as being nominative before. You just have to be careful with the number of it, I guess, because it can be singular. All right, genitive. So this is a long I, which should, I guess, remind us of second declension genitive. Um, Yeah, that's about it. So just to be clear, all the isolated endings are on the right. Let's see here. Yeah, technically, some of them are going to have this long E, then a long I, and other ones are going to be like a normal E, long I. That's a negligible difference, not a huge deal. That just might affect pronunciation very slightly. Yep, and then the plural genitive is pretty familiar. It's arum, so that's kind of like the E-centric version of first and second declension, arum and orum, respectively. Um, yeah, so a lot of these are going to remind us of certain things from the first three declensions. And if you haven't noticed already, the big letter for this declension is E. E is showing up in all of the endings. So if U was the big letter for fourth declension, E is the letter for fifth. All right, the dative rei or diei, that should remind us of third declension. So it's the same as genitive. That's not amazing. I guess there could be times when that's confusing, but that might remind you of first declension, the way that genitive and dative singular would overlap in the first declension with that a e. Except it's a lot less bad because it's not overlapping with the nominative plural like it does in first declension. And then the dative plural is rebus, so that's kind of like an e version of the ibis or ending from third declension or the fourth declension version. Okay, accusative. This is just exactly the same as the third declension accusative. Rem or diem. Em. That's yep, same as third declension masculine, feminine. And the accusative plural is the es again. So whereas for fourth declension, that us is the tricky thing where it could be genitive singular, nominative plural, or accusative plural. I guess the trickiest ending here is long es because it could be nominative singular or plural or accusative plural. But that's very third declension esque, so I don't think that's going to be horrible. Ablative singular is a long e, so this is kind of like third declension except it's long. But yeah, we know ablatives tend to like long vowels as their ending, like a single long vowel. So if anything, that's actually easier to recognize in a third declension ablative, maybe because it has the macron on it, like we kind of expect singular ablatives to mostly have, and in every case except third, I guess. But it is the same letter as third. And then ablative plural is rebus. We know ablative plural is always the same as dative plural. So, all right, this slide is the same, except I am just all the way to the right. I'm saying what each case is similar to. So nominative singular is kind of like the third plural. Genitive is kind of like second, except with an e stuck on there. Um, dative is third. Accusative is exactly third. I put exclamation marks for the ones that are truly identical. Ablative is kind of third minus the macron or with a macron. Nominative plural is the exact same as third declension. This arum is kind of like first and second, right? Instead of arum and orum, it's arum. And then the rest, the last three are all third-ish. And accusative plural is exactly like the third declension accusative plural. So yeah, you're definitely gonna want to. I would pause on the screen or one of any of these, and write all these out. That's gonna be your Rosetta Stone for the chapter in terms of being able to translate. Obviously, all the translations this chapter are going to have fifth declension nouns in them, and you're going to need to be able to recognize the case. And that shouldn't be too bad. But yeah, we're going to get a bunch of fifth declension nouns. So go figure. And it is, again, on page 176 if you don't like copying from the computer screen. All right. The only other grammar this chapter is that they are not really giving us a new ablative, but they're telling us about one more ablative that we've definitely seen since day one. We've definitely seen this before. And they're kind of rounding up all the ablatives for us because at this point we do have a lot of ablatives. So yeah, this is hardly new grammar at all. It's kind of like review. So they're telling us about this ablative of place where. We talked about the ablative of place from which was in chapter, was that 19? But now we have the ablative of place where, which is even easier. It's a location that is in the ablative, and it's typically going to be the object of the preposition in or sub, as in like in a place or under an ablative place. And it describes where something is located. Wow, go figure. All right, so in Magna Casa Vivunt, what would that be? Pretty easy, right? Via vivere means to live. They live in the large house. So, yep, there's nothing mysterious about this one. It's usually going to actually have a preposition. So, it's one of those ablatives that do show up with the prepositions, which we will differentiate in just a second. The ablatives that have prepositions versus the ones that don't at this point. Navi sub aqua fuit. What's that going to be, guys? Let's see. Maybe the ship was underwater. Okay. Yep. So nothing to that. And on the translation quiz, and what 5 plus 7 in like 12 days, I will underline an ablative, and it'll be an ablative of place where, right? That's kind of how that'll work. That'll be easy though. Okay, what's like more useful and interesting than that though is just the fact that they are rounding up all the ablatives for us and distinguish between the ones that have a preposition versus the ones that do not. So I'm going to go through these. They have a Latin example for each one. I did not type out the English translation of each one, but I'll like say those as I go through them. If you want to look at it more intently, that is on page 177. All right, so ablatives with a preposition. We have the accompaniment. So I'm just putting the name of the ablative in bold, and then the preposition that is appearing with that ablative will be in green, obviously. So, yep, cum can show up with an ablative of accompaniment, and this ablative of accompaniment needs to be a person. It just needs to be describing a person, which you can do in a lot of ways. You can use pronouns, you can use nouns, you can use names. So, cum amico id scripsit would be like she wrote it with a friend. That's it, right? Yep. So that one's not bad. And then we have cum to indicate manner, and this is showing how someone is doing something. And cum is going to be present, unlike ablative of means, and it's usually some kind of like abstract concept. It's not like means and that this is how you're doing something in terms of like a tool you're using or something. It's more like an abstract concept. So cum cura id scripsit would be like she wrote it with care. You know? Okay. In and sub is our new one. Place where. So in urba id scripsit. She wrote it in the city. Ob, de, and ex can all indicate place from which is interesting. We've known for a while all of those can be from, potentially, given the context. But yeah, that's from a few chapters ago. So ex urba id misit. She sent it from the city. Yep, easy there. And then, but weirdly, kind of, abde and ex can also indicate separation. Ob urba eos prohibuit. So she prohibits them from the city, or she keeps them from the city. So the indicator for separation is usually more the verb. As you'll see on the next slide, separation does not have to have a preposition, whereas a preposition will show up with place from which. It does not, and more often will not show up with separation. So it's more about the verb. That verb libero, liberare, to free something from something, or to keep someone from something, prohibit, and one other one I can't think of off the top of my head. Those are usually going to be the trigger for you expecting an ablative of separation. Yep. We have ablative of personal agent, and this is with the preposition ob. So ob gets a lot of play, as you know. Actually, all three of these, if you notice, the last four examples we have here, we have overlap with this preposition that can sometimes mean from, other times mean of if it's X. Anyway, yep, this is showing up with perfect passives or any passive verbs specifically. So ab amico id scriptum est. It was written by the friend. So yeah, we usually just call it agent, but personal agent, I guess, is the technical full terminology. And then last but not least is ex or de, following a cardinal number. And yeah, something like tre ex navibus discesserunt. They departed, or I'm sorry, 3 of the ships departed. The tricky thing there is that in that context, X is going to be of, not from. But it's so easy to spot because to its left will be a number, and to its right will be an ablative with a cardinal number. All right, good. Okay, and then we have just 4 ablatives that do not have prepositions. And these potentially are a little trickier because you're having to be a little more aware of the context to understand what kind of ablative they are. Of course, we have the means, the one that is mean because it does not give us a preposition. And we translate that with usually, though maybe by every once in a while. So Sua Manu Inscripsit, she wrote it with her own hand. Um, yep, that the context kind of gives it away. Uh, these are usually easy to differentiate. Is the important thing. As long as we can differentiate the ablatives that don't have prepositions, this is not a big deal. And then this one kind of surprised me. We used to talk about manner as being different from means in that it does not get cum. So manner shows up here, and that's it's more common that way. But apparently, according to the book, it can show up without cum. Apparently, when it's being used with an adjective. So Magna Carta Inscripta, she wrote it with great care. Um, yeah, I guess they wouldn't give us this ablative manner unless there is a modifying adjective along with it to kind of help out, maybe kind of like make the context clear. But yeah, that one's rare. Okay, and then time when, this one's real easy to spot because it'll be an ablative. In the word, an ablative will be a period of time or something describing time. So eo tempora or una ora inscripsit. So she wrote it in this time, or she wrote it in 1 hour. So there's a few different prepositions we bust out for that, but it's usually in or within, or sometimes at. Separation, that is one of the recent ones, and like I was saying, that can show up with ob, de, or ex, but it's often usually just you're able to tell with the context because of the verb. So metu eos liberavit is she freed them or those people from fear. So at this point, we just have a few verbs that will indicate an ablative separation. All right, this is the vocabulary for this chapter. It is what I guess a half of it is going to be fifth declension nouns, or made up of fifth declension nouns. We have dies, diei. We've definitely seen that before. Ferrum ferry is iron, though it can also mean sword. And we get some geological terms as well as Fe, which is the periodic table indicator for iron. Fides fidei is faith, trust, or trustworthiness, or fidelity. And sometimes it's a little different in that it's more like promise or guarantee or protection even. So this one's a little open-ended, but you might be used to hearing this in Semper Fi or Semper Fides, which means like always faithful. It's that Marine Corps motto. We get confide, infidel, which means unfaithful, and fealty, which is like a medieval sounding word for loyalty. Ignis, ignis. This is third declension, so they're still giving us some other declension nouns as well. This means fire. Yeah. So we get ignition and ignite from that. Igneous. That's supposed to say igneous with a U. O-U-S. Modus, modi. Second declension. Measure, bound, limit, or manner, method, mode, or way. This is kind of like a mathematical term, sort of. It reminds me of ratio, rationis. And we get model and modicum, and plenty of words that won't really help us remember it. Res rei is thing, or matter, or property, or business, or affair. So it's a somewhat generalized noun in that, I mean, just like the word thing in English, we use that all the time to indicate all manner of things. So it's really open ended. It can be a physical, actual thing, or maybe more likely a kind of abstract thing. We get words like real and realistic, and then we also get res publica is related to this, or rei publicae, which is the plural of that, which means state or commonwealth or republic. We get the word republic from that. So this is kind of the Latin word or version of democracy. If the Greek democracy means rule of the people, res publica means thing of the or public thing of the people, public thing. Yeah, and that's obviously an important term and idea and concept for the Roman Republic, and is still an important term and idea. Aequus, aequa, aequum means level or even or calm or equal or just or favorable. So picture this AE diphthong as just being like translated to just being E in the English cognates, like equation, equator, equinox, equity, equivocal. It has to do with things like ideas that express equality or equivalence, or things that are like in the middle of something, like the equinox or the equator. Felix Felicis means lucky, fortunate, or happy. There's a reference to this with that Harry Potter thing that you can eat to be really lucky for a day or whatever that was. Incertus, incerta, incerta means uncertain. That one's easy. We already had certus, so yeah, you kind of already know this one. Latinus means Latin. This is the adjective for Latin. I wonder what words we get from that. Medius means middle. So we get Mediterranean, which just literally means like middle land. It's like the middle part of the Eurasian landmass. Medium, median, mediate, mean, medieval. So it means middle. Um, Quonom, we don't really get related words from, but it means formerly or once. It's an adverb, new adverb. Ultra, ultra is kind of interesting. That can be an adverb or a preposition. If it's a preposition, it takes an accusative, and it means on the other side of or beyond. So we often use this in English to mean like really, really good or something, but it's more like beyond, like transcending. So ultrasonic meaning it breaking the sound barrier. Ultraviolet meaning going something about going beyond the spectrum of light. Yeah, and some other words. Proteinous is an adverb that means immediately. And then we get some verbs. Kernera krewi means to distinguish. We get discern from that, and it can mean discern as well. But notice that that third principal part is pretty different. The R is right next to the C in the third principal part. Aripio is kind of like a verb the rapiro one we got chapter 2 ago. Means to snatch away. It can also mean to rescue. Inquit is a defective verb that just means he or she says or said. It's kind of like between perfect and present tense, thus the defectiveness of it and the fact that we're not really getting all the principal parts. We've seen this in stories, right? Tolo tolera systuli sublatum, very irregular, strange verb that shifts a lot between its principal parts. It can mean to raise or to lift up, or it can mean to take away, remove, or destroy. Very different things, right? We might talk about this verb a little more because we get so many related words from this, but we get things like translate and inflate. And this is not tolero, tolerare, which means to tolerate. All right, guys, that's about it for today. Take some time, hopefully no more than 20 minutes, to translate these. I'm actually not going to give you the color-coded cheat codes for these yet. I don't want you guys to get like too used to that. That should be something that you are kind of like hopefully doing on your own, not necessarily with like gel pens or highlighters, but you can just circle your noun groups, your noun phrases, right? Distinguish what's nominative from what's ablative. As we're finding, especially in this chapter, clearly they're probably going to be throwing a lot of ablatives at us, and ablatives tend to be super common in general lately. And yeah, like last week, I feel like it was like just ablatives and genitives we were seeing. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm not seeing. There's bound to be some direct objects. They're definitely just wanting us to practice our new fifth declension endings. So do not try to do these without having your declensions written out. Or I guess you could go back to the beginning of the video and like pause it on where I have that all those endings. But you should get those in your notebook. It would help. All right. Hopefully that goes well. Make sure you reach out via email if you want to set up any tutoring. And if you do want to do tutoring and you want it or are okay with it being open-ended, then you could be like, hey, I need tutoring, and if like anybody else does, you can make an announcement about it, and then they can show up if they want it, or something like that. But yeah, please don't forget that that is a resource. I've done it a couple times with 7th graders, and it's not too hard to do. All right, guys, good luck, and wale.